There is a moment that happens between a parent and a child that most people never notice. It doesn't make headlines. It doesn't get captured in a perfect photo. It happens quietly, in the middle of an ordinary afternoon, and if you blink, you miss it entirely. But that moment, that small, unremarkable moment, is the foundation of everything. It is the proof that something deep and unbreakable exists between you and your child. And today, we are going to talk about exactly what that looks like. Because here is the truth that nobody tells you when you become a parent. Emotional connection doesn't always look the way you think it does. It doesn't always look like long hugs or heartfelt conversations, or your child saying, "I love you," unprompted before bed. Sometimes, most of the time, actually, it looks like something so small you could walk right past it and never realize what you were seeing. So if you have ever wondered whether your child truly feels close to you, whether they feel safe with you, whether the bond you're working so hard to build is actually landing the way you hope it is, this is for you. Because there are signs, real, observable signs. And once you know what to look for, you will start seeing them everywhere. Let's start with the first one. And this might surprise you. Your child comes to you when they are hurt, not just physically, but emotionally. Think about what your child does when something goes wrong. When they fall and scrape their knee, when a friend says something mean at school, when they fail a test they studied hard for, when they feel embarrassed or scared or confused. Where do they go? Who do they reach for? When a child feels emotionally connected to a parent, that parent becomes what psychologists call a safe haven. It's a term borrowed from attachment theory, the foundational science of how human bonds form between caregivers and children. And what it means in practice is this. When life feels overwhelming, a child who is securely attached doesn't shut down or withdraw or try to handle everything alone. They come to you, not because you always have the perfect answer, not because you always fix the problem, but because being near you makes the storm feel smaller. This is not something children do consciously. They are not thinking, "I have a secure emotional bond with my caregiver, so I will seek proximity during moments of distress." They just feel it. They feel the pull, and they follow it. Now here is where parents often get confused. They assume that if their child seems fine on their own, if they handle disappointments without falling apart, if they don't always run to mom or dad when things go wrong, it must mean they are emotionally independent. And sometimes that is true. But often, what it actually means is that the child has learned, somewhere along the way, that it isn't safe to bring their pain to the people they love most. That is not independence. That is protection. So when your child does come to you, even for something that seems trivial, even for something you might be tempted to brush off, pay attention. That is trust in action. That is them choosing you. That is the first sign. The second sign is one that tends to catch parents completely off guard the first time they really see it. Your child tells you about the little things, not just the big things, not just the major events, the report cards, the best friend drama, the things that clearly matter, the little things, the weird dream they had, the funny thing the cafeteria lady said, the bird they saw on the way to school that reminded them of something, the random thought that popped into their head while they were brushing their teeth. When a child shares those kinds of things with you, it means something specific. It means they think about you when you're not there. It means that when something crosses their mind, your face comes up as the person they want to tell. That is intimacy. That is closeness. That is your child saying without words that you are part of their inner world. Children are actually surprisingly private creatures. They have rich interior lives full of observations and questions and feelings that they almost never share with just anyone. The people they choose to share those things with are the people they feel safest with, the people they believe will actually listen, the people they trust not to make them feel silly or small for having thoughts that don't quite fit into a neat category. So the next time your child comes to you in the middle of dinner to tell you something completely random, something that has nothing to do with anything, something that might seem like an interruption, try to pause. Try to hear what is actually happening beneath the words. They are letting you into their world. That is the second sign. Now let's talk about the third sign, which is one of the most misunderstood behaviors in childhood. Your child pushes back against you, and they do it without fear. I know, that doesn't sound like a sign of emotional connection. It sounds like the opposite. But stay with me here, because this one is important. Children who feel deeply safe with a parent are able to disagree with that parent. They can say no, or I don't want to, or I think you're wrong about this, or that's not fair. And they can do it without their entire nervous system going into panic mode. They can push back and still feel okay. They can have conflict with you and still believe, somewhere underneath all the frustration, that you are not going to abandon them or stop loving them, or fundamentally change how you see them. That is not a small thing. That is a child who has internalized safety. Compare that to a child who is always agreeable, who never argues, who does exactly what they are told, and never, ever rocks the boat. That child might look like a dream from the outside, but often, not always, but often, that behavior is not a sign of contentment. It is a sign of anxiety. It is a child who has learned that making waves is dangerous. A child who has concluded that the relationship is too fragile to handle conflict. The child who argues with you, who pushes your boundaries, who sometimes makes you want to pull your hair out because they simply will not let something go. That child trusts you. They believe in the relationship enough to test it. They believe in you enough to show you their full self, even the difficult parts. This doesn't mean all defiance is healthy. It doesn't mean limits don't matter. Of course they do. But there is a difference between a child who argues because they feel safe arguing, and a child who has given up arguing because they've stopped believing it's worth it. When your child pushes back and then comes back to you 5 minutes later as if nothing happened, that is a sign of secure connection. That is sign number 3. The fourth sign is subtle. You might have to look closely, but once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Your child uses you as a launch pad. This comes from another concept in attachment theory, sometimes called the secure base. The idea is that a child who feels emotionally connected to a caregiver will use that caregiver as a home base, a safe place to return to, while they venture out into the world. They explore. They take risks. They try new things. And then they come back. They check in. They look for your face in the crowd. Watch your child at a playground sometime, especially when they are young. The children who feel secure with their caregivers are the ones who run off to play, really play, with full abandon, but who periodically look back to make sure you are still there. They don't need you to follow them. They don't need you to intervene. They just need to know you're watching. They need that home base to be real. And as children get older, this pattern doesn't disappear. It just changes form. Your teenager who seems to want nothing to do with you still comes home and tells you how the day went. Your 9-year-old who is fiercely independent still wants you to come watch their soccer game, not because they need help playing, but because your presence matters. Your 7-year-old who insists they can do everything themselves still reaches for your hand in a new or unfamiliar situation. That reaching, that checking in, that is the launch pad in action. They are going out into the world, but they are going out knowing that you are there, that you are steady, that if they need to come back, the home base is real. And that knowledge, that bedrock certainty, is what gives children the courage to be brave. Not the absence of fear, but the presence of a safe place to return to. You are that place. That is sign number 4. And now we arrive at the 5th sign, the quietest one, the one that, in many ways, holds all the others together. Your child is comfortable doing nothing with you, not performing, not entertaining you, not being on, just existing, sitting next to you on the couch while you both read different things, riding in the car in comfortable silence, being in the same room without any particular agenda, without any pressure to fill the space with conversation or activity or demonstration of anything at all. This kind of comfortable stillness is something that takes a long time to build. It requires a relationship history. It requires a child who has experienced enough moments of feeling truly seen and accepted that they no longer need to prove anything. They don't need to be charming. They don't need to be interesting. They don't need to perform their love or earn their place. They can simply be. Think about the people in your own life with whom you feel that way. The ones you can sit with in silence without it feeling awkward or strained. The ones whose company feels like rest rather than effort. Those are your safest people. Those are the people you are most fully yourself with. Your child experiences that too. And if they experience it with you, if they can be quiet with you, be boring with you, be nothing in particular with you, and still feel connected, then you have built something real. Something that will outlast the arguments and the difficult phases and the seasons of life where everything feels hard. You have built the kind of bond that children carry with them for the rest of their lives, often without ever being able to name exactly what it is or where it came from. They just know that somewhere there is a person who made them feel safe, a person who listened to the little things, a person who didn't flinch when they pushed back, a person who was there when they needed a home base, and who was comfortable in the quiet. They know because they felt it, and they will carry that feeling everywhere they go. So here is what I want to leave you with. If you recognized your child in any of these signs, hold on to that. Not because parenting is easy, it isn't, and pretending otherwise does no one any good. Not because you've done everything perfectly. None of us have, and none of us will. But because the fact that you are here, paying attention, asking these questions, caring this deeply about whether your child feels close to you, that matters. That is not nothing. That is, in fact, everything. The children who feel most loved are not always the ones whose parents did the most. They are the ones whose parents showed up, who listened, who stayed, who came back after the hard moments and tried again, who created enough safety that their child never had to wonder, in the deepest part of themselves, whether they were wanted. You are building that. Every ordinary afternoon, every small moment, every time you stop what you're doing and really listen, every time you let them push back and still hold your ground with love, every time you sit together in comfortable silence and feel, without having to say it, that this is enough. That is the connection. That is the sign. And it is more powerful than you know.